clarify, um, can clarity be given to the top 10 offenders? We actually mentioned that already, so I'll just review it. So again, that we have received the latest updates of AirPack offenders in 2022, and of course, given that no one wants their financials across the floor of Parliament, we will have that discussion if we can share that privately with the MPs. How has land been issued, seeing there is a DDAM arrest? How has this been done in absence of a land issuance policy? Was the policy issued? A reissuance of long lease land to the same owner was finalized recently. In cases of reissuance of a long lease right that is about to expire, the DDAM jurisprudence has no influence or obstruction. This is only the case where land is newly issued to a new person or entity. Although there are recently specific circumstances mentioned by the Supreme Court where also in the absence of a land issuance policy, it is possible to issue land to a new person or entity. The said policy has not yet been issued and is currently being worked on. I expect this to take about another 8 to 12 months, seeing that this new policy most likely needs to have a legal basis in a national ordinance. There is a small chance that the verdict of the Supreme Court can be used as a legal basis for the said policy. Our legal team is looking into this. Of course, seeing the utmost importance of this subject for the country, I will keep Parliament updated on this topic. But to note, the DDAM verdict does not stop the issuance of land. It has to do with the notaries being able to deed a decree or not, depending on justification given by government. The specific right of long lease has been reissued based on the ministerial decree from the Minister of Romy, dated January 29, 2024. And I'd just like to go through this and read it. So very quickly, no. So this, of course, has to do, as we know, with the Maho property. The minister asked the question, why were we, again, issuing the land? As I indicated, DDAM does not stop you from the reissuance of land. You can actually reissue this kind in brand new. So the issuance that took place on May 31st, 2024, is based on the decision by a ministerial decree by the former Minister of Romy, dated January 29, 2024. Important to note, this decree was done based on the following. So the former minister of Romy issued a decree that stated that it extends the expiry date of the decree issued by the former minister of Romy extended expiry dates of the decrees for everyone who received a long lease decree dated before that date, that is, before January 29, 2024. So the reissuance of Maho property was done based on those two ministerial decrees, both signed by a minister prior to myself. The decree for the Maho property, which dates to the decree from the Maho property was therefore reissued based on that. The former minister, through you, Madam Chair, questioned why we would have issued that, given the fact that there was a legal issue with the cadastre. Important to note that what was reissued was not new land, it was actually just the existing property. And the minister, having issued that decree on January 29th, would have been aware that all the decrees, including the one for Maho, was included when he stated all decrees signed before that would have been extended. So the impression, through you, Madam Chair, to be made that this minister or my predecessor immediately before me, Ms. Veronica Janssen, issued this land with knowledge of what was going on in the cadastre is not necessarily true. The issuance came by a decree of the former minister, now MP, and we just executed not an issuance, but a reissuance of existing land. The MP had the following question. It was stated the priority roads with economic impact will be tackled, but what about Arch Road and Well Road? The MP mentions economic impact. In my statement, I mentioned economic and social impact, as both these factors must be considered. In my remarks made last week, as well as in press statements regarding the resurfacing project, Arch Road is listed as a priority road. And of course, through you, Madam Chair, I will address the second part regarding Well Road in another question of the MP as well. What is the sentiment of the Minister, in particular to Arch Road? Is the intention of the Minister to handle this in the next road, as the next road in the priority list? As stated, Arch Road is in fact on the priority list. However, there are issues such as permanent running water in some areas of the road that must be addressed before we commence works. Very similarly, passers-by would notice that the long-standing water on Yanshu Raskin Boulevard is being addressed before we finalize the work in Point Blanche. If this isn't done, we are all doing works in vain. The MP's third question, next question, road works. Is the Well Road also on the priority list like the Arch Road? Also, what is the intention of the start date for this project? Well Road, despite its very important function, is not, as the good MP would know, designated as the main road on St. Maarten. The current priority list deals with those roads recognized as such by the ministry. Well Roads falls under the category of secondary road and will be considered for CAPEX 2025, which has a larger budget and longer execution timeline. What was the advice from the Permits Department with respect to the building permit referenced by MP Kutai? A building permit was issued. There is sufficient public parking space for approximately 40 cars to accommodate in the facility. With respect to the housing project being off the table, can the Minister provide documentation that this has been off the table and maybe any and all meeting minutes regarding this topic? And Madam Chair, I want to listen very carefully because there seems to be this continuing attempt at saying that it was this government or my person who would have lost the project, and I hope we can lay this to rest today with my response. The World Bank informed the steering committee meeting on April 10th, 2024, of its decision to cancel the project. This administration took place on May 3rd. I became minister June 26th. The Prime Minister, that is the former Prime Minister Sylveria Jacobs, was immediately informed of the World Bank's decision by Mr. Hallman, the steering committee member for St. Maarten. In terms of documentation, I kindly refer to the MP to the websites, the World Bank's web page for the project, which states that the project has been dropped. And this, Madam Chair, through you again, and I think for all of St. Maarten to realize, this was communicated to the former administration April 10th, 2024. So when the MP makes mention that up until the very end, this was being fought for and he remains unclear as to what happened, I invite you to caucus with your former government on what happened on April 10th, 2024. The next question from the MP, building permit signed on May 2nd, maybe in confidential setting, can this be shared? Indeed, building permit signed by the previous minister on May 2nd and issued to the request on May 8th can be shared, and I'll share that with you through you, Madam Chair, in the documentation when we follow up. We have follow-up questions we may have after this round. Moving to the Honourable MP Omar E.C. Otley. His first question was, I hope that there's a plan for paid parking and for the streets. Please look into the private-public partnerships for assistance. Indeed, through you, Madam Chair, I applaud the MP for those efforts. I am a strong believer in PPPs, particularly coming out of foreign affairs, where we've realized very much with limited capacity, partnerships are one of the key ways to address what we need to do. And indeed, a plan of approach through you, Madam Chair, is being established to collaborate with other ministries to address the really critical need for parking in St. Maarten, particularly in Phillipsburg. The MP's following question, I would like to have the names of everyone in the cabinet and those with labor contracts. And if you don't have third parties, can this be cut from the budget? The cabinet of Rummy consists of the following persons: Sergio Diaz, Rayon Peterson, Luciano Nichols, Theodorus Snyders, Miklos Gitterson, and Howard Villarreal. Only 2 people have a labor contract. And on the subject of cutting the budget, not having a contracted third party, as was, I think, the initial question, is not reason to cut all third-party costs, as matters may, of course, arise outside of scope of the cabinet or ministry's capacity that would therefore require ad hoc assistance. Important to note as well, Rummy doesn't actually have legal staff. All the legal knowledge of Rummy is currently external, i.e. in the cabinet. $18.2 million was moved to 2025 for things like land purchasing. By moving it towards 2025, yes, I think the question was, are we still committed, Madam Chair, through you, to the purchasing of the land? By moving it towards 2025 shows our commitment that we are still willing to pursue this project. The discussion, of course, needs to be had with the stakeholders as to what commitments have been made. Is it an indication that cleaning should be enhanced, seeing the taxi drivers themselves took the initiative to do this themselves? Indeed, the island's cleanliness is an area for improvement. Even though we promote community initiatives, we urge, even though we promote community initiatives and we applaud the Taxi Association for filling in where we as government fall short, we like to, of course, urge the community to always do so, and the Taxi Association did do so. They reached out to myself and Minister of Teyat with regards for assistance. Of course, we had limited possibility to do so, but we do thank them, of course, for their responsibility socially in addressing some of these key issues, particularly in that area, which is a popular tourist site. Minfin said, not because things are moved to CapEx 2025, does it mean that CapEx 2025 is guaranteed? This is bothering. How will KB improvements be guaranteed? Indeed, it is important to note it's not guaranteed that we would have either received CapEx 2024 prior to this amendment. However, this amendment is necessary because it's not realistic to utilize the budget in 2024. However, by moving towards 2025, our commitment is demonstrated to pursue this project. What is the role of the Minister of Rummy with GB? A Lance Slurrit issued in 2013 outlines the responsibility of each minister as it relates to the government-owned companies. Under the previous administration, there was an increased presence or role of the Prime Minister in all issues regarding GEBE, rather than Rummy or Teyat. This continues to this day, particularly with reference to the ongoing GEBE energy crisis, but indeed has to be addressed going forward for sustainability and clear input and mandate inspection. What was given to the third party in the cabinet before the cut? And I would say, through you, Madam Chair, this may be a non-applicable question simply because we don't, based on the question of the good MP, have contracted third parties in our cabinet. Then, finally, Madam Chair, we come to your questions of Sarah A. Westcott-Williams. Ring Road Affair and the plans of the Chamber of Commerce. Do we have any update on these plans from the Chamber? Status of the road fund and the matter of VNGI. The Chamber of Commerce was granted a permit some years ago. We have recently, and I think we outlined this the last meeting, we recently contacted the Chamber of Commerce and they're finalizing their reports, and we will be receiving that information shortly. With regards to the road fund, I think this question is missing. Yeah. Yeah. What I'll do, I'll take the first question to second question as well, and you will get the answer as well. The agreement with VNGI has it been renewed? Some months ago, there were some concerns about that not being done by Rummy for assistance that has been given. The second phase of GNGI support will come to an end November 2000.